With our new topic here, topic 7, it is all about the Pythagorean theorem. And make sure you get everything written down, please. I know this looks like a lot. It's not bad at all. So our essential question is going to be, how do I use the Pythagorean theorem to find the unknown side length of a right triangle? That last word is triangle. So we're going to be able to find missing side lengths of triangles. With that being said, we have our question out to the side. What is the Pythagorean theorem? We're going to memorize it here, but the Pythagorean theorem is our a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, I don't expect you to understand everything about it yet. I'm going to walk through it with you. Our next question is, when can you use the Pythagorean theorem? Well, it is very important that we have underlined here that we only can use the Pythagorean theorem with what we call a right triangle or triangles. And a right triangle is when you have a 90-degree angle. So, how do we know we have a 90-degree angle? Well, this little box down here, if the box is written, which it should be on your problems, that means we have a right triangle. That is your 90-degree angle. So that means we could use the Pythagorean theorem. Let's go ahead and talk about what these sides on the Pythagorean theorem, what they mean or what they're called. So we have our A and our B, and you can see that your A and your B are going to make up that 90-degree angle, and that will always be the case. And they are actually called the same thing. They are called a leg. So they are both called a leg. So A we can call a leg, and B we can call a leg. And then the angle that is the side length that is across from the angle, that 90-degree angle, that side length C, you can see that it is always going to be the longest side, and it is called the hypotenuse. It's Hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So A and B are called your legs, C is called your hypotenuse, and it is always across from that 90-degree angle. So we're going to start out with 2 examples for today, and we're going to try to find the C. How do we figure out what C is if I give you A and B? So let's look at our next slide. There's a couple things you see here. First of all, at the top here you see a calculator. This is actually a picture of my calculator on my phone. I have an iPhone 7, so it's an older model. If you go to the calculator screen, you're probably used to just seeing this part of the calculator. But if you turn your phone sideways, long ways, you would see all of the other buttons, which is going to be very helpful when we solve these problems. So let's go ahead and look at how do we find C here using our Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and I'll show you what to type in on the calculator. So first I'm going to identify that I have my A is going to be the 8. I always pick my A as my smallest number. It doesn't really matter. A and B can be labeled either one. B is going to be my 15. And here for this problem, across from that right angle is the letter C, and that's what we are solving for. So we are literally going to plug those numbers into my formula. A squared, well, what is A? A is the number 8. So put it in parentheses and put a squared symbol. B squared, B is 15. Put it in parentheses and put a squared symbol. And we don't know C, that's what we are finding. So when you square something, you times it by itself. So 8 times 8 is 64, plus 15 times 15 is 225, and that equals c squared. Still don't have just plain old c. We go ahead and add those two numbers together, and we have 289 equals c squared, and that equals the c squared. So this is where our calculator is going to be important. So we need to do the opposite of squaring a number, which is that square root. So we're going to take the square root to both sides to just get c all by itself. So you would literally type in your calculator. You can see I have the 0 key up there. You would type in the 2, and then the 8, and then the 9. And then right here, you're going to hit this button. And that is the square root key, and it will tell you the number 17. And that is the length for c, and remember c is always the longest side length. So we have a is 8, we have b is 15, and c is the longest with a 17. Let's look at one more example. This one we have decimals, that's okay. How do we know that we are finding c here? Well, we know that c is always across from the 90-degree angle. So sometimes our triangles can be turned, and that's okay. So we're going to have to find c. The whole worksheet tomorrow is going to be practice for finding c. So here's my a and b. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 3.7 squared plus 7.5 squared equals c squared. And again, these are decimals, but that's okay. You just times it by itself. So 3.7 times 3.7 is going to be 13.69 plus 7.5 times 7.5 is 56.25, and that equals our c squared. Remember, we like to draw our line down our equal sign when we're solving. We're practice solving equations here. We need to add these two numbers together, and we get 69.94 equals c squared. We're not done because that equals c times c. I just want to know what plain old c is. So the opposite, we're taking our inverse operations. The inverse of squaring a number is taking the square root. Whatever you do to one side of your equation, you do to the other. Practice typing that in on your calculator. You can use your phone if you have your own personal calculator, or you could also use Desmos, D-E-S-M-O-S. It is a website, desmos.com, and you can use their calculator, and that'll work as well. And when you type in the square root of 69.94, you get the side length for c is 8.36. So this side length for c is going to be 8.36, which is the longest side, as it should be. C is always the longest side. Okay, I hope you got all those written down, and all is well. Have a good day.